And the YouTube video will live online, so just giving you a heads up. So when we're live on YouTube, even if we're not live in the forum yet, as I
Okay.
copy and paste links to make stuff happen. Okay, great. We're just getting set up for WGAN-TV live at 5. We're going to be visiting with InventiveCG founder Danny Basting in Tulip Country. So if you can bear with us, we're just setting up at the moment. And let's see here. I need to actually focus on what I'm doing for a moment, Danny.
Sure, take your time.
Okay, got that. Forum, go back to this box. Kind of add this. Okay, good. So we're about 8 minutes away. What I'd like to do is just go live now. We won't start until the top of the hour, but I'll actually just be talking a little bit. Is that okay?
Sure, of course.
Okay, great.
I'll grab a glass of water in the meantime.
Yep, that'll work. Okay, great. So greetings, members of the We Get Around Network Forum. It's 4:53 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, August 24th. We're about 6 minutes away from WGAN-TV live at 5. And we really have a treat for you today. We're going to be visiting with InventiveCG founder Danny Basting in the Netherlands. You may have read quite a bit of his Matterport object file meets game engine. And so I think this is really going to be very exciting. If you haven't yet had a chance to, join the virtual studio audience, I think you can see the button at the right. Hopefully I'm pointing in the right direction. Sometimes this is actually...
You are.
I'm pointing in the correct direction?
Yes, you are.
Okay, it's a miracle. That's amazing because it's actually backwards on my screen. Anyway, it says join virtual studio audience, and that's for any forum member. It's totally free. So if you want to, join in and chat with Danny and ask him some follow-up questions, etc., just follow that join virtual studio audience red button to my right. So anyway, we'll just be getting started in a few minutes. Just wanted to give you all a heads up. I think Danny is in his bat cave there in the Netherlands, but I think he did that so his makeup would be soft. I think that's
Thanks, Dad.
I think that's what you're doing there. Let me get some water for myself.
Cheers.
But we've done a little bit of a tech scout beforehand, so we know all the screen sharing that you'll be doing will be crystal clear and sharp, and I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So again, we are actually live in the We Get Around Network forum. We're on the front page of the We Get Around Network forum, WGAN-TV live at 5. We're doing this Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, and I think we'll actually switch to some other live at 5 at different time zones. I think, Danny, what is it there now for you? Is it midnight or 11 p.m.?
11 o'clock, almost.
11, almost 11 o'clock at night, so he's hanging in there for us. But I think with some of our future participants, we'll try and do it in their time zone, and I'll be the one who's up at 4 in the morning or 8 at night or something. But
well, there's a lot of time zones on the forum, so
a lot of time zones. Yeah, I think we have Matter Peeps on 5 continents. I think I actually counted time zones once before. It is really a lot.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. So We're just about 3 minutes away from going to beginning our program, WGAN-TV Live at 5, with founder, InventiveCG founder Danny Basting. I'm in Atlanta. He is in the Netherlands, and if you were expecting Metroplex founder Chris Hickman, he's actually been sick the last few days. He's been under the weather. And so I'm actually going to chat. I know we all wish Chris a quick and speedy recovery, and that we're all thinking of him. We know he's been under the weather a few days now, and I think just didn't have the energy to make it today. So, and then if Mike, if you happen to be tuning in, it looks like I've made a mess of our front page there with how I've done some formatting. So if you happen to be tuning in today, maybe you can work your magic behind the scenes in order to kind of fix the mess that I made with some of the back end today. So we'll be getting started in just a couple minutes with WGAN-TV Live at 5. We're going to be visiting with InventiveCG founder Danny Basting from the Netherlands, and he's in his bat cave there in the land of tulips. And he's got a lot of great stuff to show and tell. It is really quite amazing what is possible with the Matterport object file, and Danny has turned that into an art, and he's written quite extensively in the forum. I think one of the most if you check out the thread Matterport scan to game engine, that is really the amount of great material in just that one discussion is really awesome. So I think that's pretty cool. And then coming up tomorrow is Matterpeeps on Friday, Matterpeeps live video chat on steroids, and that's your chance to join the call and meet other members live in this video chat. And well, that's kind of an experiment. We'll kind of see how that goes, if that makes sense. So if you bear with me one sec, and we'll get started here in a second. So you've been kind of listening to the behind the scenes. So in 5, 4. Hi, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. You're watching WGAN-TV Live. Today is Thursday, August 24th, and it's 5 o'clock Eastern Time in Atlanta, live at 5. Though I think for our guest today, InventiveCG founder Danny Basting, 11 p.m. in the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's correct. So I know you're in the land of tulips. Exactly where are you, Danny?
Well, I live in the Netherlands in Limburg. It's the southern part of the Netherlands. And I live in Sittard, which is close to Maastricht.
So close to Maastricht. So exciting to be, I think sometimes we think about our forum as just everybody's like right next door, but it turns out everybody's all over the planet. And a lot of people doing very interesting, innovative things. And I was so thrilled, I think, when Danny, I think you started writing about Matterport object file meets game engine about a year ago in the forum. Does that sound about right?
Almost a year ago, like 8 to 9 months ago, I think.
Yeah, and we've managed to keep that thread going, that discussion. If you take a look at it on the front page of the We Get Around Network forum, Matterport scan to game engine, it's like an encyclopedia documenting what is possible with the Matterport object file to, I want to say, the help me out, the Unity game engine?
No, it's Unreal Engine, and actually I'm using the point cloud data, not the OBJ file.
Okay. So using the point cloud rather than the Matterport object file. Okay, that's very exciting. And are you getting your point cloud from Matterport?
Yes, exactly.
So you're getting okay, great. So I am obviously over my head even beginning this topic. So Danny, why don't we jump in and just tell us about what you're now, what has evolved from doing all this discovery of the Matterport point cloud of meeting the game engine, of what you can now do with it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of background is in order.
Great.
I actually studied multimedia design, a few years ago. I graduated in 2010. And then I started my internship in an interior architectural firm where I did 3D animations, visualizations for architectural firms. And I actually started doing some drafting work as well there with ArchiCAD, something similar to AutoCAD. And I was actually looking for scanners a while back to increase our work, to speed up our workflow. Because normally we went to property, we measured it by hand. Two people went there for a day, depending on the size of the property. So I was looking into a 3D scanner to automate part of that process. But it turns out 3D scanners are extremely expensive. And a few months ago, I ran into Matterport when I was researching it. I came across your forum, did a little bit of research there as well, which was a great resource. And it actually turned out the help I got from the forum actually made me help with the decision to buy a Matterport camera. So I've been using that ever since to scan our properties. Now it's a one-man job. You go like 1-2 hours depending on the size of the property, and it'll actually speed up the drafting work as well, because now you've got this point cloud, which is an underlayment for the CAD work, which usually the traditional way we use measurements which we draw by hand, and then you need to calculate everything. So the drafting part is a lot faster as well.
Terrific. Thank you for the backstory. I think that's is kind of teed it up in terms of where you are, because I think initially we're looking at perhaps prototyping some things for your business, and now figured out how to offer those services commercially to the community.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm doing my main task is actually creating 3D visual renderings and animations. So getting the actual CAD data that I need in order to create those, Matterport is a great help for that, because it speeds up my process, like I mentioned before. About a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, I started working with Unreal Engine as well, which is a game development software. And I actually use that to create interactive visualizations. So right now, people can actually walk through an interactive space. They can interact with objects, change flooring and colors of walls, for example. Well, the possibilities are actually endless. So it's pretty exciting times.
Danny, is this a good time to show while you're telling? Do you have some examples that you want to jump into?
Definitely. I'll share my screen.
Okay, and while he's queuing that up, if it turns out that, like, oh, this just seems like it's over your head, it really is not, because all these services can be provided by Danny, and he'll go into that at some point. First, he's going to give you some examples, but when you're using the Matterport Pro 3D camera or Matterport Pro 2 3D camera, and you're scanning, not only are you taking the photography, but you're capturing the data that's enabling what's possible. And to me, I just think that the data that's captured has potentially way more value than even the imagery that we see today, or what we think of as a Matterport space. So, Danny, looks like you're ready to walk us through some of your examples.
Yeah, this is I actually imported a point cloud file which I requested from Matterport. This is a scan I did a couple of weeks ago. This is ArchiCAD, so I've already imported it because it takes a long time to import. You can actually view it from, well, most of it is in Dutch, but this is the first floor. You can actually see a section cut of the property over here. I can go to the second floor as well. Now, like you can see over here, there's some sections which I can move around. So if I open this section, I can actually view what that point cloud file looks like from a section point.
So have you done anything to the data other than import it in this example?
Yeah, I did, but once it's imported, it's actually just like this. I did some other things, but I've turned those off right now.
Okay.
So this is actually the raw point cloud data.
Great. We're looking at exactly a visualization of the point cloud data generated by the Matterport platform.
Exactly. And you can create 3D sections as well so that you can look inside the dome. And the cool thing is you can actually take measurements as well, very accurately, compared to the OBJ file. So I can zoom in a little bit, take my measure tool, and I can see that this is roughly 3.5 meters, 3.7 to be exact.
So is really, just as a side note, is working in the point cloud far more accurate than the
OBJ file?
Than the OBJ file that we typically work with?
Yeah, it is, because the OBJ file is actually generated from the XYZ point cloud file. And it's a low resolution mesh, which will decrease accuracy. And it's created in order to use it for the online, online Matterport tools for the dollars view. And that's actually what it's created for, and that's what it's suited for as well, because they need a low poly mesh in order to run it smoothly on both mobile devices and browsers.
Yeah, this is actually an aha moment for me, because I know early on in my Matterport days, visiting with folks in the construction space and people involved in BIM modeling, and I had provided them with an object file, and they said, "Nope, sorry, it's not good enough for us." And so, interesting that fast forward today, it's possible to get the Matterport point cloud directly from Matterport. Today it's in beta. It's no charge. I don't know if there's any plans for Matterport to charge for that point cloud, but today Matterport generates a point cloud through their beta program. And apparently the data is far more accurate than working in the object file environment. So that's I love that. I mean, it's very geeky, but I just, that's really significant.
It's still not as accurate as scanners like Faro, the multiple dollar, $1,000 cameras, but it's accurate enough to create draftings and stuff like that.
Yeah. If I could just digress on that for a moment, I think this is the question is how accurate. Often people in this space are asking the question, how accurate is the data? And sometimes you don't need a jackhammer to hammer in a nail if all you want to do is hammer in a nail. So it may be that the Matterport point cloud file is good enough for many uses. That doesn't require a $40,000, $50,000, $100,000, $250,000 scanner. And so I think sometimes what's happening today is architects, engineers, construction from the AEC space, they have a need for a scanning project, and all of a sudden they pull out a $50,000 piece of equipment, and they're tying up a tech that's been trained on how to use that, and they're tying up a piece of pricey equipment, when it just may be that bringing in a Matterport service provider is perfectly fine.
For creating a CAD file that will be used as a base for a design, it's perfectly suited. That's why I actually invested in the camera in the first place.
Yeah. Because your alternative was, in fact, using a Faro or some very pricey camera and having perhaps two people work on the project and tying up.
I used to do it all by hand with a hand laser measurement. And a measure
that must
tape,
have been depressing, as now that you know that you can simply import this file and begin your design process rather than reconstruct.
We still need to create a current phase 3D model, but we can create that faster with the point cloud data.
Okay, great.
And just to get back to the accuracy of the OBJ file, I just opened up SketchUp. And like you can see here, this is all very low resolution, which takes away from the accuracy, like I mentioned before. I'm assuming you still can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still in awe looking at the mesh view of what Matterport accomplishes, but obviously you really have taken it to the next level. Yeah.
Well, I'm actually, I'll demonstrate here. I created a few walls in here. Let me create a section. I actually use this point cloud file, all these dots, the one I selected right now, which is highlighted in green. I use this as an underlayment. So I go to the second floor, for example, and then I start placing walls with this wall tool over here. I'll just extend this one right now. And I'll just roughly create them on the position where they need to be. And I'll adjust them later on. So I can create a new wall over here, just to show you my process little by little. So I first roughly place the walls, and then I'll create a section and see if it actually fits or if I need to move it in a little bit. As you can see, right there, this is pretty accurate. It could move it a little bit to the right now, and I can make it a little bit wider so that the left gap will close. And after I create all these walls, I put in some flooring as well, and I create the windows with the window tool. And this is all pretty basic. This is the principle, how do I say it in English? The basics are all the same, no matter what software you use, if it's AutoCAD, Revit, or Archicad. So then I'll put in a window, roughly, and then I'll resize it so that it actually matches up with the point cloud file. And if I'm just doing it very roughly right now. Normally I take a little bit more time.
Yep.
And if all that's done, I'll create a section over here. And I'll remove the point cloud file. You'll actually get a very clean model like so, which I can use to create draftings, use as a base for visualization, design process, and stuff like that.
Talk a little bit more, if you would, about what problem are you solving with what you're creating?
Depends on the actual. Each project is different. I do a lot of things. I do draftings for architects, for example. So if they have a current, if they have a building that needs to be redesigned or remodeled, I can actually go scan the property, take the point cloud data, and actually create a 3D model very fast compared to the traditional way where we had to measure it all by hand. After that, the architect can use these files to create their design, so they can actually put in new walls if they like, just like so.
So I think what I'm hearing in that particular example is that many architects today, if they're remodeling a space and there's no as-built, there's no CAD file, there's no Revit file of the space, either because the space has changed so dramatically since it was designed, or it simply was never designed on CAD, it was drawn on paper, that if the architect was going to begin a renovation of a space, that the first thing that they would do is show up, perhaps with a laser measurer, take key measurements of the space, take lots of pictures of the space, then reconstruct the space even before they begin their design.
Exactly. And often you need to go back because you forgot to take that one picture or take that one measurement. And if you scan your property, you've got everything you need.
So that's a problem. It's both time and people time. And I also would imagine that most architects that do renovation find the whole process of reconstructing someone else's work not so exciting because want to design. So if I'm hearing correctly, in this particular example, working with an architect, you're able to say, hey, we'll come in and scan your space, and we'll deliver back to you a model, perhaps in SketchUp or Revit, that the architect can then begin immediately doing what they love, which is design.
Exactly. They can use this as a base for their design instead of creating it themselves.
Okay. And this is and now you've started your own company, InventiveCG, to offer this service to the Matterport service provider community.
Along with other things, yes.
Yes. So what is this particular service called?
That's called AEC CAD conversion.
Okay, so AEC CAD conversion. So if you've been watching along here, and if you're just tuning in, you're watching WGAN-TV live at 5. We're visiting with InventiveCG founder Danny Basting in the Netherlands. And Danny's company, Danny's been quite prolific in the We Get Around Network forum discussing uses of the Matterport point cloud in order to save a lot of time, energy, and effort in the architect, engineering, construction space, the AEC space. And so the first example, I think, out of 6 of the different services that you offer commercially to the Matterport services provider community is Matterport AEC CAD. So do I have that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're working with an architect, or you want to work with an architect, this is actually just something quite amazing, that you can save the architect a ton of time in using a laser measure, taking pictures, reconstructing the space by simply working with Danny to take your Matterport scan, have it converted by Matterport to deliver a point cloud that Danny then uses to model on top of the data in order to generate a file that an architect would be extremely excited about.
Exactly.
And that's actually part of what you're doing in your day job, is you're doing this for your architects and saving them a ton of time and they probably, do they give you a hug because they go, wow, this is so amazing?
I think that's harassment.
Oh, it's harassment. Sorry, but I would just imagine they would be so excited.
They're pretty happy with the scanning as of lately, since we've got the scanner. It's a huge time saver. Not only
maybe they give you a fist bump instead, or something.
Exactly.
So give you a fist bump. Okay, cool. I know you have a lot of other toys in your toolbox you wanted to show us. What's up next? Or is there anything else on this one before we move forward?
Well, from this we can create floor plans, sections, elevations, all kind of things that an architect or a project developer would need in order to create their designs and get plans approved by the local government, stuff like that. So that's basically it.
Is there more to show us on this particular one?
I've actually created a folder. This is the actual space that I just showed you. This is a picture from the Matterport scan.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually created the model like I just showed you in ArchiCAD itself. And once I've created it in ArchiCAD, I can actually create a clay render from it, like so. Create a basic lighting setup.
Mm-hmm. Is that called claymation or no?
They call it clay render.
Clay render, okay.
Yes. And you can see it here with some furniture, just a design, part of the design process. And then you can actually render it as well with nice lighting and materials, and you can end up with something like this.
Whoa. Now, I know you're showing a 2-dimensional rendering, but is it actually a 3-dimensional model that you're showing us, and you're just showing us the 2 dimensions of that model?
This is an actual exported JPEG from a 3D file. I can show that as well. Let me fire up my rendering program.
Okay. So this is kind of exciting. If I'm hearing you correctly, Danny, you're able to take, let's say that a Matterport service provider has scanned an empty space, maybe a commercial space. Now, is this between the architect and between you, or is this the architect is then creating a clay rendering in a three-dimensional model?
I can actually, I'm not sure if I follow your question. I can create these CAD models, and I can create renderings as well from those. And what I was actually showing you right here is the process that I actually use. I start out with a current state scan. I actually built a 3D model from this, and then I'll create a lighting setup. I use a white material so that I can know if the light doesn't overexpose and stuff like that. And then I'll create furniture and like a design proposition. And I'll create flooring materials, wall materials, lighting, some items to dress it all up. But this can be either an architect that wants a certain design to be shown to his clients, or I can actually design it myself and use that as a proposition. You can also.
And is that a three-dimensional model, just like we think of Matterport? And
it is, but I can't turn around in this right now. I open an image of it. I can also. This is the very same room with tiles.
Yes.
But I'll show you in the 3D rendering software. This is actually the file. Like you can see, this is the very same space.
Yes.
And this might slow down the stream. I don't know. Just so bear with me. I can actually press a button. It'll load up. And now you can see in the. Actually, let me increase that. Right now, I'm looking at this very same 3D view, which is currently rendering, but I can also zoom in, rotate it, and it'll keep rendering until you've got this clear image. I'm not sure if it shows up on the stream.
I see it as a point cloud taking some time to render. So
exactly.
In terms of show and tell, this may be one that's better to just say, yes, I can create a three-dimensional model that's fully rendered that looks like Matterport, except it's a space that hasn't been built yet. It's a
exactly, and we can create images from that or animations, even 360 panoramas.
Okay, cool. Do you have a name for this service that you offer to Matterport service providers?
This is just architectural visualization.
Okay, architectural visualization.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, cool.
I can also show you a demo of Unreal Engine, the program I've talked about on the forum.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually a 3D design as well. This one wasn't based on the Matterport scan, but it could have been. The process is all the same. This is created from plans, but I could also create this space. If it was a pre-built space, I could also use the Matterport data to create this. And over here, actually, let me see if I got the right map. People can actually walk around this environment like a video game and interact with it. I think I've posted a video of this very particular project. So you can walk around. And change the flooring, for example.
If I could just interject here, it's not silky smooth on our end where it's going from being out of focus to in focus. That is simply the limitation of our live television feed, and is not really a reflection on what Danny is designing and creating. So bear with us that we're doing our best with pushing the technology to enable this live stream. But it is actually, I've had an opportunity to look at it. It's like silky smooth and beautiful, and it doesn't go in and out of focus. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't aware that it wasn't very sharp on your end.
Now that it's still, it's perfectly sharp.
Yeah, but I can imagine if I move around that it's a little bit blurry.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
But not a reflection of your product, just simply a limitation of us doing our WGAN-TV live stream here.
Okay. So like I showed in the video as well, you can actually walk towards this point right here, and you can actually change the wall color to, say, a reddish color, for example. And the cool thing is you can actually save a color palette as well. So I can drag this. I'm not sure if you can follow it because it's...
Oh, yes. We're it's rendering in real time. You've just changed the wall to a different shade of red, and you're...
Definitely. Yeah. So I can walk away from this and look at it at a different angle. Actually, let me close this up and restart it. Standalone. This will take a little while to load. I was using the editor right now. If I use a standalone application, I can actually use the escape menu as well. If I do that in the editor, the program will shut down. So now I've opened the very same project as a standalone file. This is the starting menu, and you can click continue, and then you'll actually be spawned inside the environment. Right now I can walk up to this chair, for example, and change the color just like I did with the wall. So let's take a yellow color for this, for example. I can save this. And if I go to escape and I press cinematic, I'll have a little animation that I pre-created. And if the view moves to the right in a second, you can actually see that those chairs are yellow right now. So it's all interactive. So if I escape out of this, and if I change these to this red color that we created before, and if I restart, it was actually kind of orange, but anyway, if I reopen this animation, you'll see that the colors of these chairs are updated. So it's an interactive video. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense, and it's absolutely fascinating to see what you're able to do. I know that you mentioned this model was not created using the Matterport point cloud to start with, but it simply could have been. So
exactly.
we'll take that leap of faith to say, okay, imagine this is began with the Matterport point cloud. Danny did what he did in the previous segment of reconstructing the space, and then be able to change the text, add furniture, add textures, change colors, wall coverings, floor coverings. This almost seems like the holy grail of what Matterport is capable of in this space, albeit presently done individually, as opposed to making this an automated platform for us to simply be able to do this. So this is requires a lot of skill to be able to do this, certainly at least today. So Danny, as we're looking at this, there's two questions that come to mind for me. One is, what are the use cases for this? And I guess two, what problem are you solving for someone that involves time or money?
Well, projects like this exact project was actually used for a project developer, which was building 6 or 8 apartments. I think it was 6 apartments, but they weren't built yet, and he needed to sell those properties. So, and this is a perfect way to sell a property that doesn't exist yet. Potential buyers can walk through it, imagine it with a tile flooring, with a wooden flooring, whatever the contractor would like them to see.
So this one's a little bit, I completely get it, and that's great, but it's not exactly, I'd still like to bring it back to Matterport because if the space doesn't exist yet, we can't scan it yet. So let's go back. This is, I think, is really good. So, bear with me here. Imagine I'm a Matterport service provider. I go into a company that has, take a real example here in Atlanta. A property management company is managing 60 plus properties in multiple states, and they get really excited about Matterport, and they say to me, "Oh, but we're working on half the building is also half of the company is also actually on building out." Projects like this. So they say, "Oh, we're in the midst of breaking ground, or we haven't broken ground, or we'd like to talk to you in 18 months because we'd really love to have this once we finish the building." So would the magic expression here be to say, "Oh, well, we can help you today with your spaces that aren't built yet. Just simply provide us with the architect's Revit file, and we can provide you with not only a three-dimensional model that looks like what I'm showing you today, we can also enable it so that it has an interactive palette, so that if your potential buyer wants to see what it looks like with a carpet instead of a tile, or want to see with a blue paint instead of a white paint, that's all possible."
Exactly, and you don't even need the Revit file. I can actually create it from floor plans if necessary.
From floor plans. So if you have a two-dimensional floor plan, and know that the ceiling height is I would say 10 feet 2 inches. I have no clue what that is in meters. But if you know what the ceiling, you have a two-dimensional floor plan, and you have a ceiling height, and maybe you have some artist renderings to give you the style guide, then you can create an interactive design studio like you've been showing us.
Exactly, and if I get access to elevations, I actually can create the exact door height and stuff like that as well. If not, I use a normalized height and width of doors.
So the problem that you're solving here, for example, is someone, a potential client, is how to help them sell or rent or lease spaces that haven't been built yet, so that they A, can make sales, and B, improve their cash flow. Is that kind of a
exactly.
Is there some other in this particular example? Is there another problem or challenge that you're solving for your client that engaged you for this solution?
Like I mentioned, it can be used by architects who want to present an unbuilt home, or project contractors, but also people who want to remodel their house, and they aren't exactly sure what kind of flooring material they want. So instead of picking the wrong one and regret it afterwards, they can actually, it doesn't have to be a tool, but it could be an image as well, so that you can actually get an idea of what the space will look like after it's renovated.
Okay. So I would say that that's a possibility at a certain income level, that perhaps I just want to be able to today have you design an interactive tool of my house so that I could see what it looks like. But I think unless you want to push back, I'm going to say, a really good prospect for this solution that you're showing now is an architect that wants to be able to easily and quickly work with a client to show them how a space can be restyled for a multi-story condo building. Does that sound like a good use case?
Absolutely. And go ahead.
It's all right. Sorry.
Okay. And once you've got this free space, you can easily add interactivity. I can show you live a little bit of programming, very short, what's possible, and the possibilities are endless, like I mentioned before.
Okay. So I think that's an example of working with an architect who's working with the client. Then I would imagine, I'm almost going to say what I think might be even a better example, because I always think, how do you get closest to the wallet? The opportunity to solve a problem where you can help a client make more money faster is maybe even a little bit better than the architect example, unless the architect is able to be, that much more efficient with their time and design, and maybe they use that as a selling point to get their new business is when you engage us as an architect. This is the kind of solution that we use in order to help collaborate together to get to a better place quicker. But I would imagine, I think about, I don't know, I live in Atlanta, so the state bird is I don't know if this will translate, but the state bird seems to be the crane. There is so much construction going on in Atlanta today that there's almost a crane, it feels like, on every corner putting up buildings. And all those condos that are being built, that they could begin the sales process sooner and maybe close sales faster if they were using a tool, an interactive tool like this, when they're sitting down with potential clients who really want to be able to visualize the space before they make a decision. Does that
exactly? Yes, that's what this project was meant for.
Okay, great. And Lanks, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, forgive me for, I've just taken you off of mute. Was there any kind of follow-up question you wanted to ask Danny?
Can you hear me?
And so we're having a sound problem.
I don't know if I've got a microphone here.
No. So unfortunately, we're going to move on, because unfortunately, I don't know what the connection is, but if you type me your question, then I can relay it back to Danny. So Danny, was there a video? Was there something else related to this particular solution that you wanted to show us?
Well, I can create a quick example. I don't know if it's interesting, but I can show you what the actual interface looks like. If I move this to the left.
So while you're doing that, for lack of a better term, I want to call this a Matterport Design Studio service. So,
okay.
If you're looking at what Danny is doing now in terms of creating a tool or a platform that enables interactive design decisions, figure out how to go to, some bigger clients that's got, the architects, they're in construction, they're in engineering, where you can help them make more money faster. The architect even to be able to say, hey, if you use this kind of tool, you're going to get, more clients quicker for more money, because clients would eat this up of being able to participate in the design process. So, I could imagine at some point that Matterport will come out with the design studio that will, in some way automate and simplify, or perhaps they'll partner with another company to offer an automated solution. But at least today, as of August 24th, 2017, you're looking at a solution that's doable today, either from your Matterport scan, perhaps of an empty building, or which is just absolutely amazing, what Danny just said, is if you give him a two-dimensional floor plan, if you give him floor plans and tell him what the ceiling height is, and maybe you have some design direction in that some architect design studio already put together a few renderings of how they envision the final design of the space, then Danny can create a three-dimensional model that's interactive with color palettes.
There's actually a great site. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with it. It's called Hose. It's Let me open it up.
Yep.
That's a collection of a lot of different interior design. Let me see, interior design.
Yeah, in fact, what a great way for inspiration. You can just pick out, go through here, pick out what you like.
Exactly, you can pick up your style. If you wanted something modern, you click on modern. I actually picked kitchens right now. And you can actually create an inspiration book over here. You can create a collection. And you can actually, use that as a guideline for the design process.
Isn't that great? An inspiration book to fast track you to be on track. And so either your client's doing that, or you're doing that, or you're doing it together, and then you're able to work with Danny to actually create these solutions. All right, I think you were about to show us something else here.
Okay. Well, like I mentioned, the Unreal Engine is an interactive solution, so we can create all kinds of cool stuff. I can actually create a trigger box. I can put that in here, and once the actual user enters this box, a certain action can occur, and that can be whatever we want it to be. So I can create an event on begin overlap. And then something can happen. Let's say, for example, we want to turn these lights on and off. I can see the names of these lights right here.
And forgive me, you're using the Unreal Engine to do that, is it?
Exactly, which is actually a game development software.
Okay. I'm actually a marketing person that's very geeky. So please don't give me credit for actually understanding what you're doing, other than I'm in awe of it. So.
Okay, that's okay. So let's say, for example, we want to switch these lights on and off as soon as we enter this box right here, which we can actually do already without walking into it. If I walk towards these lights, I can actually turn them on and off. But we can also create an event that triggers this when we walk over here. So I actually created this trigger box, which you can see right here. And then I'll create an event. And the event right here is set to set visibility. So I take set visibility.
So if I wanted to tap and have the designer of this space tell me what the view is that I'm looking at.
Excuse me?
Could I trigger an audio tour on demand? So I walk out on the balcony and, hello, I'm Dan. I'm your salesperson. You're on the 45th floor. You're in Buckhead in Atlanta, Georgia. This unit 45A is looking south towards downtown. So that's an example of something that could be triggered, which would be an audio tour guide on demand.
Exactly. There can be all sorts of actions compared to whatever happens. For example, right now I created a trigger box which triggers this event. I can actually show this live. So whenever my character enters this particular model, this action will trigger. Action is called set visibility, and the new visibility is off. And I actually use the light components as a target. So as soon as I enter this box, these lights will turn off, hopefully.
Okay. So I see a television in that particular example. So it might be that if I walk towards the TV, would it play a video?
Yeah, I could easily create that, but I don't have video content right now loaded into the project, but that's just possible as well.
But that would be, so I'm just thinking of things that one might annotate an environment, audio, video. I imagine shopping potentially, or at least say if I click on that TV set, it might take me to the appropriate Amazon link where I could actually go buy that if I wanted.
Yeah, that's possible as well.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So just going back to my notes here, this are we still in the AEC CAD, or this is a different, this is the
interactive applications are these.
Okay, so
interactive
I called it the
visualizations.
Matterport Design Studio
Exactly.
service,
Yeah.
and so this would be the InventiveCG interactive design studio service.
Yeah, you could call it that.
Okay, all right, I'll call it that. Okay, what else you got in your Mary Poppins bag of exciting
My
things
Mary
to show?
Poppins bag. I can show it live, but as many of you have probably already seen it, I can also extend projects like these to be viewed in VR with the HTC Vive.
Whoa.
Oculus Rift support is coming. I'm working on that. So I'll open up my Vimeo account.
Okay. While you're opening that up, let me just do a break here to say that if you're just tuning in, we are live. This is WGAN-TV, live at 5. I'm Dan Smigrod. I'm the founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. We're visiting with forum member Danny Basting. Danny is the founder of InventiveCG, located in Tulips country in the Netherlands. And I think we have a member of the forum who's joined us, Lanks. We tried to hear the audio, but we couldn't have you join us. But if you want to text me in a private window, I can always ask Danny a question for you. So I think what you're about to show will actually give me goosebumps. So go for it.
Okay, sounds good. Want me to talk over it or want me to just play it?
Your choice.
Okay. On the right side, you'll see me. I recorded myself actually walking through the project I created. I'm using the HTC Vive motion controllers, which the white one can be used to actually teleport through the space. You can actually walk around as well, but depending on the size of your room, you can only walk a few meters. So right now I'm just looking around, opening some drawers, just exploring the space. And now I'm opening up the laser pointer, which allows me to interact with certain objects, for instance, change the flooring material, which can all be predefined. If an architect wants to show a specific set of floors, I can create that flooring material and import it into a project.
I'm literally tingling watching this. It is that, to me, it is that exciting.
And I can physically turn on and off lights with a light switch. And I always keep saying this, well, it doesn't look as immersive on the screen than it does on the headset. Once you've put on a Vive or an Oculus Rift, you're there. I can't really describe it.
Yeah, it seems like, can this experience be shared? Can two people be in this room at the same time? Or is it on the screen so that the client can be wearing the VR viewer and the architect is seeing this on a PC of what the client's looking at?
As it is set up right now, the client can view it inside the VR headset, and the architect will be able to see it on either a monitor or a TV. I'm planning on creating some sort of multiplayer where you can actually see each other, or like a resemblance of someone else who's in the space with you.
Yeah, Danny, I think even in the first scenario that you gave where the client is in the VR viewer experience and the architect is watching things on the monitor, wow, how exciting is that to be able to say to your client, would you like to see hardwood floors? What color hardwood floors would you like? Would you rather see that in slate?
That's actually possible as well. Right now, the architect or whoever is showcasing the project can view whatever the person with the VR headset is looking at. Mm-hmm. But I can also create key maps to the mouse and keyboard so that the architect can actually adjust or interact with the model. So change the flooring, like you mentioned, or change the wall color, while the viewer in the headset is actually walking around. That's possible as well.
Yeah. So seeing the animation of the drawers open and close, that's cool. But I think the money shot is, I'd like to see the walls a different color. I'd like to have them lighter. I'd like to change the floor, the floor covering. I'd like to change the style of the floor covering, the color of the floor covering. And so, for an architect, space planner, designer that perhaps has some, presets, frankly, this could be, I recently went and scanned a design center, and that design, I mean, Danny, you're going to love this. I recently scanned a design center here in Atlanta. And so if you're going to buy a condo at X location, this company has so many different condos that to say, we're going to send you to the design center where you can look at all the tiles, you can look at all the bathroom fixtures, all the sink fixtures, all this, every type of material that when I'm buying a condo, I can make a decision about. I can look at swatches. Okay, well, what you're doing, frankly, instead of building a physical design studio, a physical place that has swatches, boy, I could really imagine that the buyer just stepping into the VR experience and being able to go through the 5 different floor coverings, the 5 different wall colors, whatever it is, and have it actually configured exactly what the client wants. I'm going to imagine when they had this concept of, we're going to build a physical design studio and we're going to have people drive to it, and then we're going to have them look at 4-inch square tiles and visualize what that looks like on the kitchen floor. That was probably innovative whenever that approach. But what you're doing here is so disruptive to say, no, you don't need all these samples in one places, and you don't have to keep building out examples of kitchens and sinks and
I'm actually working on a kitchen VR configurator, but it's a long-term project because I don't have I don't have a lot of spare time on my hands. But I'm actually for a showroom, a kitchen supplier. I'm actually building something like this that a client can actually pick out several colors of front door materials, different handlebars, countertops, stuff like that, so that you can actually, once you've got let's say 50 materials for the flooring and let's say 20 countertops, you can create a numerous amount of combinations. So that'll save a lot of space for the people selling kitchens, and the clients can actually see more possibilities that way.
Yeah, right now, thinking about this design, and it's not a big place. Maybe it's 500 square feet here in Atlanta, but if you wanted to take that 500 square feet to a trade show and or you wanted to go, let's see, even a better example, you wanted to go to a home expo in Atlanta, you could never do that. You couldn't have, it's just too expensive to physically reconstruct that space for 3 days of a show. Now I can imagine a 10 by 10 by 10 space where here's this interactive studio, and if you're thinking about buying a place at X condo, put on your VR viewer, and we're going to ask you some questions, and we're going to get the walls to look like you want them, the floors to look like you want them, the ceiling color, and down to the fixtures. And now we're through virtual reality enable you to walk through this space. This is so amazing what you're doing.
Yeah, and you can actually press a button. I mapped the button on the left motion controller in my VR demo. So that once you've configured the space the way you like it, so you picked, let's say, a red dark wall color, a floor material that's wooden or something like that, you can actually look at it from a certain angle, whatever you like, and then press a button, and you'll save a local screenshot on your computer as well.
Wow. So, I'm hearing that you really are on the cutting edge of actually creating a virtual design studio in virtual reality for a client, and this is exactly the kinds of projects that you're looking for. And I think Matterport service providers are in such a great position. Gee, I could imagine going back to the client that engaged us to shoot this space here in Atlanta, and and say, hey, that design studio you have, imagine that it was virtual, and we can, and instead of looking at all these different, here are the faucets, here are the here's the trim for whatever. It's actually within the actual condo or house that people are buying. There's five different models that they use all over the country. Is to say, okay, let's have you configure it today in this virtual interactive design studio.
Exactly, because you can very easily manipulate a scene like this. I can easily move this couch around. I can replace it with another static mesh, so that it'll turn into a different sofa, for example, with whatever material I want to show.
Very
or whatever
powerful
material that the supplier has to offer.
Okay. All right. So you've taken us through the InventiveCG Interactive Design Studio, both as 3D model, now as virtual reality model. What else you got up your sleeve?
Give me a second. I'll open up the form with some notes.
This is absolutely remarkable. If you're a Matterport service provider and you're thinking about scanning, you're creating data that has so much value to the right client. You heard me just talk about a company that has physically built a design studio. I imagine they've done that in many cities for many communities that they're building out. Wow. Think of the amount, not only the money that can be saved in building it out, but in enabling a client to make a much more confident decision because the space is actually rendered exactly the way they visualize. And I know my wife and I have tried to, we did a renovation project, and it's just so much easier to see it as a three-dimensional model than trying to look at swatches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We missed the OBJ to SketchUp file conversion, which is something that can be pretty useful. Actually, we've already seen the SketchUp model that I imported.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back to this one. So I actually used the OBJ file instead of the point cloud, like we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I created a SketchUp file from this, which designers or clients can use to actually do their own design work if they like to, because SketchUp is a pretty easy 3D modeling software, which can be easily learned. If you, for example, scan an empty space, this one wasn't empty, but let's say you did scan an empty place. Let me just delete some geometry right here, which you shouldn't need to do if the space was empty. So right now I deleted this chair, and you can actually very easily put in your own furniture. If you go to,
we're in the SketchUp.
This is SketchUp, yes,
SketchUp.
Exactly.
Okay. So, in the service that you offer is converting the Matterport object file to a SketchUp file.
Exactly, and this can be used by clients to actually create their own designs if they want to.
So, why wouldn't a client just want the object file?
You can't just import the object file to SketchUp. You need to convert it first.
Yes. But a architect, engineer, designer, they're using a CAD program, and you're a Matterport service provider, and you say, hey, I have an object file. What are they going to say, and what's the problem that you're solving?
Can you rephrase that, please?
Yes. Or let me see if I can describe what I think the answer is, and then tell me if I'm right or wrong here.
Okay.
That if you're here, let's take an example of an architect. If you're a Matterport service provider and you're visiting with an architect, and the architect is typically going to when they do the finished design of a project, they're working in a program called Revit. But before they get to that Revit phase, they're most likely designing in something called SketchUp, which is just think of it as just kind of a a way to sketch out proposed ideas quickly without any regard to a lot of stuff. And in order for the architect to use SketchUp, they actually need a .skp file, a SketchUp file. And so Danny's company, InventiveCG, takes the Matterport object file and converts it to a SketchUp file so that it actually has, that it's usable. What I think of is, and I actually don't even, I'm not even sure I understand why, you know, Matterport offers an object file. I guess people like you like the object file, but it seems like a much better, you know, button on in Workshop would be, you know, export to SKP, because it's really, I think of the Matterport object file as data, and I think of the SketchUp file as a tool. And for someone like an architect, if you can tell them, you can give them a SketchUp file of a space that you scan, I would imagine they'd be very excited for the reasons that you were originally talking about at the beginning of our discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of a fair assessment that anyone who's
you can actually you can draw accurately with SketchUp as well, but it's like you mentioned, it's used mostly for the design phase, the sketching phase, hence the name SketchUp, I assume. So you can actually import this, open this SketchUp file, which was created from an OBJ file, and you can do some virtual staging, for example, put in some furniture, and you can actually change the materials of this furniture that you created. And let me turn off this section, view section cuts, and you can dress it up a little bit with a couple of chairs, for example. I'm just roughly editing it right now.
Yeah.
Nothing
so while
fancy.
I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to talk over while you're doing your thing there for a bit, just to give you to give our audience another example. So a member of the We Get Around network, a member of the We Get Around Atlanta team, is an architect of 13 plus years. And we asked, my wife and I asked them to, I bought a Matterport camera in July of 2014, when Matterport Spaces 3D Tours as we know them today was first possible. He bought the camera way before that, and it didn't even take the photography. All it did was capture the data. And he was very excited about the data that the camera captured, because as an architect that did many restaurant renovations, he wanted to begin with the data, just as Danny is describing, because he didn't want to go out and take a laser measure somebody else's space, take pictures of someone else's space and reconstruct it before he would design. So anyway, we asked him to design, to renovate our master bathroom. And so he took, I scanned our master bathroom. I gave him the object file. We had a SketchUp file created from the SketchUp file. He was able to create a three-dimensional model and present it to my wife and I in order. And Danny, I think we haven't gotten it to yet, but I think it was actually in BIMX, is that he was presenting a three-dimensional model to us so that we could make decisions rather than looking at maybe a two-dimensional floor plan and swatches of material. And that was only possible because we could take the Matterport object file and have it converted to a SketchUp file to enable an architect that knows what they're doing to create magic and propose designs back to us. So, Danny, you look like you're at a point where you're ready to jump back in on what you've done there.
Well, I've just I've put in, just for an example, I've put in 2 extra chairs where the blue chair wasn't initially, but if you can imagine the space is completely empty, you can actually create, you can virtually stage the entire room or entire property even. So you put in your own couches with the colors that you like, and you can even create a new flooring so that you can create let me see, you can create a plane like this, put it on top of the existing floor on the right half. And then you can give this a certain material like tiles, for example. So this is sort of a budget option compared to the visualizations that we showed earlier.
Yeah. So So I just like to kick it up a notch for Matterport service providers that are watching this and going, oh my God, I would never do this. This is like so over my head. No, not at all. All you need to do is have a potential client like an architect, a space planner, a construction company, and just simply say, hey, would it be helpful to have a SketchUp file of the places that you're planning to renovate? So that you, and the problem that you're solving is not tying up their senior people going out and measuring, taking pictures, and painfully reconstructing somebody else's work only to redesign it. Architects want to design; they don't want to build somebody else's stuff only to then begin the design process. So, so this is a service that Danny offers, is converting in his company InventiveCG, converting a Matterport object file to a SketchUp file. This is relatively an easy, fast, and reasonably priced solution in order to be able and still enable you to mark it up 3 times and offer that to a client who would be thrilled, because you're solving a real problem, and you're also helping with enabling the design process to take place far faster than it would be, particularly if you're talking about a larger building that has to be created as a 3-dimensional model. You already have the data that can be converted to a SketchUp file. So anyway, that's InventiveCG Matterport object file to SketchUp file, and Danny's just trying to give some examples of what a architect could do in a program like SketchUp. And again, the accuracy of the measurements of going from the object file to the SketchUp file in the initial design phase is not critical. So don't let an architect tell you your thing's not accurate enough. It's going to be good enough to present to a client. And it's probably good enough even to calculate what the cost of materials would be. It's certainly not accurate enough to cut glass. And frankly, in the construction space, every trade is going to measure their own space anyway before they start cutting glass and installing mirrors and windows, etc. BIMX, you ready to move on to yet another solution you have?
Absolutely. Yet again, it's something I can't show live because you need a tablet for that, which I don't have on me right now. It's at the office, but I can show the video just like we did on the what's it called, the VR solution.
Yep. So if you're just tuning in, you're watching WGAN-TV live at 5. I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum, and I'm visiting today with InventiveCG founder Danny Basting in the Netherlands, talking about all the amazing things that are possible from the Matterport object file, Matterport point cloud. So that essentially you have this whole new toolbox that you don't have to necessarily be focused on what exists today, but things that are pre-built. So it's a combination. You just have this, now that you understand scanning, there's so many other tools in your toolbox other than coming back with the Matterport Spaces 3D tour. That's great, deliver that. But these are the kinds of things when you're talking to a potential client who says, come back to me in 18 months when the place is built. No. You got stuff to help them today, and then you can scan their space in 18 months as well once it's been completely built. Danny, back to you.
Yeah, I just jumped back real quickly to ArchiCAD since we're going to talk about BIMX real quick. Actually, once a project is set up in ArchiCAD, so we've got this CAD model like we've seen before, these walls, for example. We can actually create a digital presentation model that can be viewed on iPad and Android devices. And it combines floor plans, 3D models, elevations, sections, even presentation PDFs. If a client has some sort of piece of paper with materialization, so flooring, for example, just some nice presentation sheets. We can add those as well. I'll just open up the video real quick. This is a view, a recorded view from a tablet. So right now, this might go a little bit fast. On this, can you see my mouse cursor as well?
Yes.
Okay, so right now, if I press this, you can see a little thumbnail of the CAD file that I created from a Matterport scan.
Yes.
If we go forward a little bit, I'll actually tab on the 3D scan. This is the OBJ file that I imported into ArchiCAD as well. And below are the actual drawings, which again are in Dutch, but well, this overview is English, but the rest was in Dutch. So we've got this overview from all the drawings that I created for this project, all based on a Matterport scan, which you can swipe through. These are the elevations, sections. And the cool thing about BIMX is you can actually zoom into a particular section, floor plan, or elevation, and you can press this 3D button on the bottom, and it'll actually overlay the 3D model on that particular part of the plans. And you can move them around so that people who aren't very familiar with reading actual architectural drawings, they can get a good understanding of what those plans are actually meant.
Yeah, I know we have some friends that showed us some blueprints for a restaurant, and my eyes glazed over. I absolutely couldn't understand, could not possibly visualize what they were so excited about building. And yet there are these three-dimensional tools that would enable it to be easy, fast, and simple for me or someone else to actually understand what it is that the architect has designed by looking at it as in a three-dimensional model.
So everything that you're looking at right now is viewed on an iPad. Might go a little bit quick. Coding I did a long time ago.
Yeah, so this is really amazing, because I think, when I see something like this, I think, okay, salespeople in the field, they're calling on people, they're showing them spaces, that haven't been built yet, they're showing them, what the possibilities are of various, design projects. So world's gone mobile, and it's possible to have once projects are rendered as three-dimensional models, if I understand correctly, Danny, you're bringing this into an app called BIMX, B-I-M-X, and using BIMX, the three-dimensional model now comes to life on an iPad, for example.
On an iPad or Android device.
Or Android device. Okay, cool. I know
it's actually a presentation model. So like I mentioned before, I actually closed it, I think. Let me open it up real quick again. So you've got this overview here. We can create folders as well. So right now I didn't put anything in a folder, but if I go a little bit further, where was it? I think over here, I tab on a certain drawing and it shows up over here. But this, like I mentioned before, can also be a presentation view or a picture or whatever. So it doesn't have to be project model related.
Yeah, it's
could be anything.
Yeah, it's amazing. So Danny, let me run off a little checklist here and tell me if I'm missing anything. But I think what we've actually have gone through today is InventiveCG is 6 services: a Matterport object file to SketchUp file, Matterport converting the point cloud to an AEC CAD conversion service, a simple CAD conversion service, some high-end visualizations, such as including the interactive design studio, both as three-dimensional and virtual reality. The BIMX, which we've just looked at, BIMX conversion service. And then I would say the sky is the limit in terms of custom solutions of what you're able to do using that Unreal Engine. Have I left out any of the services that you're working on?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay, so
like you mentioned, the sky is the limit with the Unreal Engine, and you gave a perfect example for playing video on a TV, for example, something that's easily implemented. And I encourage everyone that that has an idea of something that they wanted to see visualized or implemented in one of my templates, that I'd be happy to take a look at it.
Terrific. So, we've been visiting with InventiveCG founder Danny Basting in the We Get Around Network forum. It's at Danny Basting, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Boston. I want to say
Basting, yes.
Basting. At Danny Basting, one word. And I think the magic word to find everything in the forum related to what we've been showing you today is use the tag in the search box, InventiveCG, 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 and that will call up many different examples, including the Matterport meets a game engine discussion that Danny started putting a lot of these examples that he's been thinking about over some time. He's been thinking about the commercialization of what he's been doing. He's launched his business, InventiveCG, and then I think one of the exciting things for We Get Around Network basic, standard, and premium members, Danny has extended a 15% savings on all his different solutions that he offers. So again, if you go to InventiveCG is the tag within the forum, you'll call up many of these services. There's some rate cards on some of the services that are online. Danny is in the Netherlands. He's in tulips country. His website, InventiveCG.com. That's InventiveCG, InventiveCG, one word.com. And please do check out everything in the We Get Around Network forum. There's a ton of material and videos and other examples of Danny's work that he's been presenting here to us. So, Danny, I thank you for taking us through your various solutions today. I know it's after midnight in the Netherlands right now, so we thank you for hanging in there. Lanks, thanks for joining us, though we didn't get a chance to speak with you, but if you have questions, please post them in the forum. There is a discussion in the forum about today's WGAN-TV live at 5, so if you have follow-up questions, feel free to post them there. Again, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network forum. You've been watching WGAN-TV live. Thank you. Danny, hang in there for me, and I'm going to end our broadcast here. Just chat for a second. And
okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And bear with me one second. And I'm almost there.